This week, should Canada spend more money on its military? Also, do we need the monarchy? This and much more to come. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst.
Trudeau said that we spend about 1.2% on our GDP for the military.
I used to be in the military, and I remember when that NATO contribution was 3%.
I'm not sure if the military should be in front of a whole lot of other initiatives like healthcare and education and so on. We should make sure we balance everything.
If we invested more in the root causes of conflict in countries, then maybe we wouldn't need to spend so much on defense.
President Trump recently called out Canada and other NATO member nations for falling short of the suggested 2% GDP target for military spending put forth by NATO. Currently, Canada contributes about 1.31% of GDP, well behind the Americans, who contribute roughly 3.4%. Trump says Canada is, quote, slightly delinquent in its financial commitment to NATO and feels we should pony up. So, what do you think? Our question. Should Canada spend more money on its military?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to be in the military, and I remember when that NATO contribution was 3%. That was the goal. It's been reduced, and after we had the Cold War end, so to speak, in Canada many people were saying, hey, we have to get a peace dividend. And I remember somebody who remained nameless, but a very high-ranking person said, but we've already collected on the peace dividend. The reality is somewhere, sometime you're going to have to reach out and defend your sovereign interests, which means you better well have a military force of some sort to deal with that.
Yes, I think we need to be spending more, but I think we need to be spending more basically on our infrastructure. If you look at our F-18s right now, our F-18s are very old. My husband retired 20 years ago and he used to fly the F-18. It's an old airplane, and I don't think you're going to see much in the way of new equipment, especially not new fighters.
Yes, I think so. I think they contribute to Canada and the world as it is in the current situation where everywhere around the world needs a certain amount of military intervention. But again, you know, it's a political hot potato. So whether or not it should be done is a question for all of Canada.
I mean, not to deny the importance of the military and the very important job that they do, but trillions of dollars are spent in the defense industry worldwide, and there's so many other causes that would need more money. Canada's at a historic low in terms of its spending on international aid, for example. And I would say that if we invested more in the root causes of conflict in countries, then maybe we wouldn't need to spend so much on defense. So I would say there's other areas that could use a boost, perhaps before the defense spending.
I think they need to spend more money on equipping the military properly. Now, whether or not it's providing more support to NATO, I think we're pretty good at 1.3. That's not bad. But yeah, it needs to shore up the military here in Canada as well. So I know the military is hurting for people and good equipment to use.
Yeah, I think this is more up to Canada than the U.S. to decide. And in my personal opinion, it's probably we're doing all right already.
Why do you say that?
Well, I'm not sure if the military should be in front of a whole lot of other initiatives like healthcare and education and so on. We should make sure we balance everything.
Yes. Why? Equipment. We're setting our young men and women into danger's way. We can provide them, right?
Not more than Americans, if I can say that. Yeah, they dedicated like a big part of their budget on armament and the defense. I think Canada should not follow their example. I feel like the budget is properly made here for hard purposes here.
Yeah, I do believe in the Canadian military. I think that's a wise use of resources, and I think that it should continue to be spent on.
No.
Why?
Because I think if anything does happen and it becomes an apocalypse, all the money in the world won't save us. So I think we're better off trying to save the country and the world as we know it rather than militarily.
What I'm seeing right now with the NATO is really bad. I mean, Trudeau said that we spend about 1.2% on our GDP for the military, and we always pressed by the United States to pay more, up to 2%. I think that personally, the pressure that we're getting from our neighbors in the South is pretty bad. So I think we should invest more. Instead of giving that budget to the NATO, we can invest more in our own military.
You know, I mean, we also are part of a world where other people want to have bigger weapons, and then what does that mean? So I think it's a fine line between both, and I really don't know the answer. I'm really hoping that we have people in power that actually do know the answer, and kind, caring, loving people, not people who want to hit with a bigger stick.
There are diplomatic means of sort of resolving issues. One doesn't have to spend so much money on the military when we need a lot of social services improvements back home.
I think that yes. I think the way that the country is going and the fact that, you know, we're neighbors to the U.S. and there's a lot of controversy going on down there, I do think that we should be prepared for troops and, you know, training the military, having more people, putting more money into it. Absolutely.
We haven't needed it. Why spend it? Why spend money on the military when you don't need it?
It's a good cause. I don't want to overstep what I'm saying, but I think that money sometimes goes to the wrong sources. So perhaps that is a good idea. You know, I'm saying no because when they're out in other countries and they're spending, we don't even know where it's going. So that's sort of an important thing.
Ideally, I mean, like if it's been working, is it money? Is the money worth putting into the military? Is it something that we need? Because if you're dumping more money into the military, that kind of causes a little bit of like a social scare to everyone else too. It's like, why? What do you plan on doing?
And it's military, but more importantly, it's veterans. Can we please look after the guys that have made it possible for us to live like we do?
Same thing, honestly. The veterans need so much more than what we do normally. The military is a grand thing, and I believe in it wholly because of what it is and what they do for us and how they've made everything free. But our veterans are the one who need us now because they've done the hard work to get us where we are now.
Only if it's for the role of peacekeeping. Historically, Canada has been a peacekeeping country, aside from the world wars. I'd like to see that continue, for peacekeeping only.
I think we do have to spend more money, but much gradual. Because for us to hit 2% of GDP, it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I know there's a lot of pressure, especially from our friend, Mr. Trump. But, you know, I think that we do need to invest in our military. But getting to 2% GDP, maybe in 2030 we might get there. But certainly you can't push it beyond that because the tax increases to the Canadian people would be way too high if you're going to hit that target.
Plus, I think if we're going to do it, we've got to be accountable to what are we spending the money on, and not just, yeah, we got to get to 2%. There it is. We're there. No. What are you spending on? What's the value? What are you actually doing with that money, and where's it going? So.
After a throne speech and a brief sitting before the holiday break, MPs are headed back to their ridings. But it doesn't mean they won't be thinking about the important issues or the hard work that lies ahead when they return in the new year. We sent our cameras out to ask Canadians what they would like to see get accomplished. Our question: what would you like to see Parliament accomplish in 2020?
Ooh, a lot of changes. Changes to the school system, health care, you know, better tax cuts for people in the country, better budgeting, a lot of changes.
Specifically to healthcare, what would you like to see improved upon?
I think the wait times for people are really long. I understand that we have OHIP and that attributes to the wait times, but I think, you know, people that have serious illnesses can't get in for appointments to see specialists for surgeries. I think that should be fixed for sure.
Look after our elderly and do the things they should do so we don't have so much poverty. The reason I know about that is because my daughter is a nurse and she's worked for a non-profit organisation close to Toronto, and it's sad. So please, up it. Give us more.
Climate change is a big issue, and I think a lot of people, specifically like youths, are really concerned about it. I don't think any country is really doing enough. So, yeah, I think that's something that we really need to address as a country and really as a world.
I really would love to see that people are actually starting to work together and forget about what party they belong to, but just that we're all part of the human race, and how do we all get along?
I think our top priority is actual climate action. I'm very sort of aware of the changes that are taking place, and I think that we can't afford to sort of dilly-dally on that. And my other thing is I'm concerned regarding Indigenous rights, okay, because I know we have a water crisis regarding lead, etc., but it's been decades since a crisis such as what you call a grassy narrows has even been paid attention to. All we get is, provinces, what you call promises, but I am not Indigenous, but I can empathize.
Well, there are some things, but I think if they just work out if everybody stopped worrying about every little thing, then the big issues wouldn't be such a big issue. We could get more done with it.
I think the whole question of climate and climate change has become forefront in many people's minds. I don't know that many people really understand the true issues here. It's a subject that everyone has an opinion on, but very few people have any real knowledge about. And that's clearly communicated in, I think, policy misdirections, of which I would include the carbon tax. I mean, it's nice for politics and for pretending that something's been done, but in terms of changing people's behaviours, which is what it should be about, it's had absolutely no impact at all. So I think far more attention should be given to this as a global issue.
I think obviously I'm worried about the teachers. My daughter's a teacher, so I worry about that. I worry about the kids, that they get the services that they need, and I'm also worried about the health care. My parents are seniors, and I'm worried about their, the cuts to them as well.
The health for the people, more good stuff, because it's not enough. The regulation for the people who enter in Canada freely with not legally.
I would like to see Parliament really tackle the Aboriginal questions that are outstanding, but also how climate change is affecting the whole world as we know it, and we need to have action on that right away.
First of all, I'd like to see the country come together. I love minority governments. I think that they are far more productive. You don't ram things through government. You have consultations and you get agreement from different parties. And I think that's the way we are in Canada, and I think that's the way they need to go. So I think they need to work on the economy. They need to work exactly what they said on the environment. And we need to have more consensus, basically, is what I think we need to do.
Sir.
I will continue on from what my wife has said. First off, we've lived all over the country. And when you look at living all over the country, you understand all the regional interests. And you've got to respect all the different parts of the country. And right now, you better get your act together to unify this country.
Some of the things that I would like to see that perhaps I haven't heard yet from this government, more news in terms of what the government plans on gender equality, refugee issues. I know Canada is a country that benefits a lot from immigration. I'm from New Brunswick, so a province that last year its population went up the first time because of immigration. So I think we can't be out of the scene in terms of that. So I think 2020 is a really key year, and also I think Canada is at a historic level on international aid, and I would like to see Canada, if we say we're back on the global stage, then really, be back at a time where so many countries are reversing that trend in terms of, support for global issues that matter a lot.
It would be nice to try and get to our targets for greenhouse emissions and whatnot. I'm in support of the pipeline going through BC, so that would be good. I think that would help unify the West a little more.
I wouldn't mind if Parliament went and looked again at the how voting is done in Canada at the federal level. There was a big talk about that at the beginning of the Trudeau era, and didn't quite come to pass.
You mean proportional representation?
Proportional representation, exactly.
So you'd like to see that come in?
I would. Yep, I think it's a fair way to represent what people are voting for.
George Murray holds the distinction of being the longest-serving premier in Canadian history. Which province did he represent? Nova Scotia, British Columbia, or Manitoba?
Nova Scotia?
I would say C, Manitoba.
We're going to go with Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia?
Ooh, Nova Scotia.
I don't know. Manitoba?
I'm going to go with British Columbia.
Gotta go with Nova Scotia. I could be wrong.
It's Nova Scotia.
Awesome.
You got it right.
Yay.
George Henry Murray was Nova Scotia's 8th premier. Murray's unbroken 26 and a half years in power is a British Empire and Commonwealth record. Murray was born in Grand Narrows, Nova Scotia, and moved to Halifax at 16 to study law. He was appointed to Nova Scotia's upper house in 1889. He became premier in 1896, having been handed the leadership of the Liberal Party by his predecessor. Murray won a seat in a by-election later that year, and won his first election as premier a year later. During his time in office, Murray helped improve the province's transportation and communication systems and bolstered economic development and social policy in Nova Scotia. These days, the way people communicate and share information around the world has changed dramatically. Tools like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are a big part of that. Social media has been instrumental in helping political parties get their message out to the voting public, which has created a whole new ballgame in terms of elevating the conversation. So, we took this question to you. How has social media influenced how you follow politics?
I would say that with regard to Facebook and Twitter, they do have an impact to people depending on what they follow, because they have one opinion can have two different sides, and people can use that for all purposes. So that's what I strongly believe in.
Absolutely, definitely. I think things pop up in your feed that you wouldn't otherwise go seek out on your own. So I think sometimes it can be a positive thing, but to that same token, I think with the information is not always true or fair or real. So I think you have to be kind of choosy about what you take in and what you use as your own information.
Yeah, definitely. For example, this year, the federal government elections, I followed mainly all these things on social medias. Besides that, I'm not a guy that really look at TV. I'm mostly on my cell phone, so yeah.
No. I try to avoid politics on social media at all costs. I don't want my opinion influenced by anything I see or read by other people's postings, and I ignore that completely.
Probably very little. I think I fit into the older generation that doesn't use social media much at all, so it has very little influence on me.
I would say a little bit, not really. I try to make my own opinions, but I like to read the controversy in the comments.
I don't know. Like, I see most of like the news I get is from like social media, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So like I don't really go out and look for political news. So really the only way I interact with it is social media.
Yeah, like pretty much the same answer. Like I don't buy the newspaper, I don't watch TV, so seeing it on like Instagram and on Twitter is like pretty much the only way I become informed as a young voter.
Very much so.
In what way?
Twitter, I watch all the Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, I follow that a lot, plus the news.
Well, I work as a programmer, so I love Reddit, I love Twitter, and it influences me a lot. The thing I do look for, though, is bias. So I like to look at different news outlets, see different sources, and there's a lot of political YouTubers that are super influential, and I feel like they need to be a bit more utilized.
Mostly because my friends, what they post, their own opinions. I try not to follow too much because I want to build my own opinions. I look at the different things that they've actually posted themselves. I look for their websites to find out.
I try to ignore it, but it's almost impossible. It sometimes heightens my alertness, and then I go further and look something up a little further, because it used to be you'd have, several different kinds of newspapers, and today you have to go through several different types of social media, or not just listen to the blurb, and then research it a little more.
I must admit I find it disturbing, because you never know whether or not you're getting the right information, and I find in a lot of cases it is what would you call it, making statements that are not necessarily backed up by the truth. And so I tend to not use social media a whole lot.
I don't think you can deny the importance of social media anymore. If a politician says something on Twitter, it's out there. Like, it's almost considered public policy. So I think it's a very important part of politics now.
In the fact that I have to look at Facebook every day to find out what my news is, but like a channel like yours is also helpful in that we see just how government actually works, and so it's important. It is important, and it's a new way to communicate with people.
Greatly, especially American politics. It seems like all of it's on social media now, which is, I think, crazy, because I'd like in-depth stories, not 140 character stories. It's a shame, because all we see is the surface and not what's going on behind.
I think it really does. And the danger in that is the fact that you're never getting the full story. You never will get the full story. You only get parts of stories. So can you really follow social media? But yet people do follow social media.
It's become just nothing more than a soapbox for people to vent their spleens.
Canada's association with the monarchy, both French and English, has profoundly shaped our history and our culture. Canada is, of course, a constitutional monarchy. And while many people feel the royals are something we should always associate with, there are some who feel we should just move on. We may have Her Majesty on our money, but do we need all the pomp and ceremony? Our question: does Canada need the monarchy?
Yes. Because the Queen is the Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. Did you know that?
I think, yeah, it's how the country has been built. It's a constitutional monarchy, if I remember, and I feel like they need to keep that like the way it is, the way it's represented by the General Governor. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of history. So yeah, it's not a bad thing.
No, I don't think so. Well, I think it's just an attachment to the name and the word. Pretty much run by ourselves anyways.
I don't think so. I think it's time for just us to move forward without it.
I'm not really too sure what the monarchy does for Canada in that respect, so in my opinion, probably not.
No, I don't think they do.
Why not?
It's outdated. I don't think it gives anything to Canadian policies or politics.
That's a very good question. No.
Why not?
We are independent.
Yes.
Why?
It's our history. We're a quiet country. We're a calm country. We believe in everything that's happened to make Canada what it is, and I believe in the royalty.
No.
Why?
I think the Canada needed the monarchy at one stage, but we don't need it anymore. We should be an independent country, I would like to hear the Prime Minister give the throne speech, not from the throne, but I don't think that we need a Governor General, and I don't think we should be attached to the monarchy.
Sure.
I'm of the same mind, believe it or not. And but when you look at why is the monarchy not going to disappear in Britain, because it's for tourism, in my view.
I think we should follow it in as much as we need to have it as part of the Constitution, but as far as what happens with Aboriginal people and their relationship to the Queen and the Crown, that's something completely different.
So I could see some purpose to being connected with the Commonwealth. However, I don't know in terms of the monarchy itself. I would say that Canada could do fine without it.
It's just well established, and it's a symbol of, I don't know, unity and whatnot within the Commonwealth. So I think it's really good.
I think so. I think it's an important symbol of stability. Yeah.
Tell me how it symbolizes stability to you.
It's something that's held Canada and the other Commonwealth nations together for centuries. For me, I think it's an important feature of Canada.
I was born in Britain.
I was born in Britain too, so
And
I
I-
would probably say yes to
I like
that.
the
yeah.
monarchy, but I don't think we should have to pay for it. They should pay for themselves because they can afford it. I've lived here 59 years. So I've raised both children. My husband had a good profession, and I wouldn't live in Britain, but I like it.
I don't see why. We seem to be okay on our own, and the monarchy is just symbolic. That's all.
I don't think so. I think that we're kind of independent from the monarchy. It's fun to follow, but I don't think that we need them to function as a country, no.
Yes, I love it.
Why do you love it?
I just love it. I love everything about it.
I believe that it's important to us because it represents kind of our history. So we have the War of 1812, we have her on our coins. When you go to the army, you have to salute her and you say you're fighting for the Queen. So there is some Canadian cultural stuff there, whether or not you agree with it, but...
Do we need them? No. Do we want them? Yes. I'm so tired of everybody getting rid of everything that was old. It's a great institution. It's a wonderful tradition. Do we need them? We don't actually have them other than figureheads anyway, so I don't know what we're getting rid of other than a figurehead if we get rid of them.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or questions about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also check out our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.